Okay, in this video we're going to go through how to use the scanner class to get input to run a Java program. So scanner is a pre-written class in Java. We talked about it's one of those 4,000 plus classes, just like the string class, that was defined and written by somebody else. So somebody else has gone through and created the class for you and given it methods or actions that it can perform. So the most popular uses for scanner is to get just basic input from the keyboard, or to get process input as coming from a text file. So if somebody gives you a whole bunch of information that you need to read in and process through, instead of having to sit there and type it in, you could read it directly from the text file. So we're going to take a look at the scanner class. There are steps for using the scanner class. The first thing that you're going to need to do is import the scanner class that's included for use in your program. So this line of code is going to be very important. Import java.util.scanner. That tells Java that you are actually going to be using the scanner class. Step 2, you actually have to create the scanner. Just like we created variables x, y, and z, you actually need to create this scanner thing that's going to act as your keyboard. So think of it as like you're giving your keyboard a name, and then anytime you need to get input, you're going to say, hey keyboard, I need you to give me the next int, or I need you to give me the next double. So it's going to help you go through and kind of get that information. And you can name it whatever you want. I like in because it's nice, short, sweet, to the point. If you want to name it keyboard so that you remember exactly what it is that you're working with, it should be short and descriptive. It should not be Bob, but something that if somebody else came in, it makes sense logically to them what that was doing. And then step 3, you need to actually get the user input using one of 3 different methods. And the method depends on what type of information you want to use. If you're getting a whole number that you want to be able to do math problems with, you're going to use one method. If you're getting a decimal number, you'll use the second method. And then for everything else, anything that we're not going to use as a whole number or a decimal number, we're going to use the third option to get that input. And something that you should always do is make sure that you prompt the user, or you ask them a question. Don't just put a next int in there, because if there's nothing there to tell the user they need to type information in, they're not going to know you're waiting for information to be sent. That'll make sense a little bit in a minute. So scanner method number 1, if I want to get whole number input. So I'm asking the user, hey, what is your age? So I'm going to output my question. Here's my prompt. And then I would say int age, because I'm going to store it somewhere. I need a variable to store it. And I'm going to say in.nextInt. So I'm inputting the next integer value that the user types into the keyboard. And then you always, 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 and I will say this many, many, many times, you always want to put this line of code, in.nextLine, after any time that you use in.nextInt. And the reason being, the user types in 5 and then they hit enter. Well, the next int only gets rid of the 5. That enter is still kind of sitting there on the keyboard waiting to be processed. So let's take a look before we look at the next options. Let's kind of go through and actually see this in action in Eclipse. So I open up Eclipse. It's got my last program showing. I'm going to come in here, create a new class. This is going to be my scanner practice class. I'm going to come in, check off public static void main, hit finish. And then one of the first things that I always want to do, I'm going to come in again, move my curly braces to the next lines, get rid of this comment that I don't need, comment out the 2 ending curly braces that I have here so I remember where I'm typing things. And then I want to put my name, date, all that information at the top. Well, I'm kind of lazy, so I'm going to go back to an old program and copy it, paste it, change the date, change the name of the file, and this is a simple program that will display questions and get input from a user. So I'm just going to go in, change my description so that it matches what my class is going to do, and I'm ready to start. So if I go back to my notes, step 1 said I had to add this line of code. And it's important that this is a line of code that's actually not going to go inside of main. So you're going to go in here right underneath your comment, right before public class, and I'm going to say, hey, I want to import java.util.scanner so that I'm ready to go. And I always like to put in a comment, so notice how it says used for keyboard input, so I know why I'm importing that. You should always have an understanding of what code you're writing. You don't want to just start writing code. So this tells Eclipse that when it's running my program, hey, I'm using stuff from this file that somebody else wrote. So I need you to go and import, take that scanner class, attach it to my file here so that I can use it. Step 2 says I actually need to create my scanner. So I'm going to come down here in main, and the rest of my code is going to show up in here inside of main. And I'm going to say scanner in equals new scanner, and system.in is the Java's name for the keyboard. You notice that as soon as I do that, my yellow underline disappears up here that was under my import statement. I've created a new scanner. In now shows up with a yellow underline because I haven't used it yet. So if I wanted to ask the user what their age is, I'm going to put my question in and say int age equals in.next int. I'm going to say in.next line right after it so I don't forget. So I've gone ahead in and I have created my scanner. I've prompted for a question. I've stored that question, the user's answer to that question. And then I could output it and say, wow, you're so many years old. And I'm going to take the user's input now and plug it into my sentence because I've stored it in a variable. So I save it. I go to run it. Notice it prompts me here, what is your age? I say I'm 16. It says, wow, you're 16 years old. So I've gone ahead in. I have inputted some information, stored it, and then outputted it again. So that's great. Works for whole numbers. If I want to go through and I want to use a decimal number, because that's always going to be important, I want to use a decimal number as I'm going through this. Very similar. Just instead of next int, I'm going to say next double. So we're going to go ahead and ask the user for their GPA. So I'm prompting them, what is your GPA? This time it's going to be a double. And it's a new variable. And I'm going to say in.next double. Again, I'm going to do in.next line for this one. And I do that anytime I use the in.next int or in.next double, I'm going to follow it with an in.next line. And I'll go ahead just to make sure that it's getting the information correctly. I'm going to go ahead and output that. I'm going to go ahead and output that GPA so I can see that it's working. So I save this. I run it. It asks me what my age is. So I'm 30 this time. And it's going to ask me what my GPA is. Say it's 2.5. And it says, hey, great job on your GPA of 2.5. So the last type of input is if I want to get any other piece of information from my user. And what I'm going to use that time is a next line. You do not need to follow it with another next line. It's going to take everything that I type in and store it. Okay? And note, we're not going to have any specific next methods here for booleans or chars. We'll input those using the next line method. So let's go ahead and ask so I'm gonna prompt the user to enter some information. And sometimes you might want to just put this as a print statement, and you'll notice that when I do that, then when the user types in their information, it's going to show up on the same line. So I can say string name equals in dot next line. And in this case, I don't need to put an extra in dot next line because it's already included right here. I've already done a next line, so I don't need to put one linked with next int and next double. So if I run this, it asks me for my age. So I'm 25. I've got a 3.4 GPA, and then I'm going to enter my name. And notice that it outputted that right back out to me. Just enter my name if I wanted to label it like I should. And say name equals. And notice that when I run it this time, I got my age, enter my GPA, and say enter your name please, and that what I type shows up next to the prompt because I used a print statement, not a print line statement for my prompt. And I can type in as much as I want, and it's going to take everything that I've typed in and store that in that variable. And if I run it just one more time, just to show you again, I can type in numbers, letters, symbols of any kind, and everything I type in exactly as I typed it in is going to show up. Now a little bit of troubleshooting when you're running this. So let's say I run my program. If, let's say, I type in a word, like the word 1. Obviously not, it is an age, it could be my age, I could be 1, but it's not a number, you're going to get what's called an input mismatch exception. And what it's pretty much telling you is that what you typed in does not match what it's asking for on line 16. And again, I can click on that, it takes me to this line and say, oh, I need to enter in an int. So if I run it, this time I type in 1, the number 1, oh, you're 1 years old. If I do my GPA, notice if I type in just a whole number, that counts as a double. There's no problems there, and then I can type in whatever I want for my name, and it's still going to work. It takes that 3 and just is going to store it as 3.0 because all whole numbers are also decimal numbers. They're just missing the 0.0, so it automatically kind of gets added on there. And probably the biggest, most common error is if you forget to type in this in.next line. So I've commented it out. It's not going to run this time. When I go through and I run this, I'm going to enter my age. That's going to enter my GPA. And then it says, please enter your name. Enter your name, please. Name equals. It's not giving me an option to type down here. And that's because it takes that empty enter that you typed in right here after the 3.4, and that's what it stores inside of name. So if you ever go through and it's not prompting you for input, you don't understand why, you put your sentence, you have your in.next line, you're trying to store it in a variable, it's not working, make sure that after all of your next doubles and all of your next ints that you have just a blank in.next line. So when I go through and try and run it now that I've taken out that comment, now it lets me enter my name. So that is the basics of the scanner class and using it to get input from the keyboard. Good luck.